Do you have any opinions on 2024 elections, like who you foresee being at the helm, who has a shot? What are your thoughts on the climate today? Because what happened this week, which is kind of every comedian's dream come true, both sides had declassified documents, and now the side who bashed the other side, the president's backing up his Corvette, and the classified documents are on the back. Peter Doocy asked the question saying, what was that all about? Why is there classified documents in your garage? He says, I always lock my garage. He's like, what do you mean you lock your garage?
Well, the funny thing is, to me, this is the managerial class in government striking again, right? Merrick Garland looks at a U.S. president the same way that Anthony Fauci looks at most citizens. Shut up, sit down, and do what you're told, okay? Joe Biden's use has passed. Well, guess what? Now the leaks begin. Now the insiders turn on him, and they're going to dispose of him the same way the same institutions tried to dispose of President Trump, okay? It's like Jim Comey teaching Hillary Clinton a lesson. Well, guess what? He'll teach Donald Trump a lesson. This is the real threat to democracy, is that technocratic, bureaucratic, managerial class. And the illusion that we live in today, the biggest illusion in America today, is that the people who we elect to run the government are the people who actually run the government. They do not. Okay, and I think that the top of an agenda I think maybe for the GOP is more likely today, may as well be the Democratic Party for all I care, needs to be to replace the civil service protections that stop a U.S. president from being able to fire the people who report to him, to convert those to sunset clauses instead. And say, you know what, if you're the U.S. president, you can't serve in this country, can't serve in that position in this country for more than 8 years. I don't think most federal employees should be in their positions for more than 8 years either. That's how you actually drain the so-called swamp. And I think that that's not a Republican agenda or a Democratic agenda. I think it is a pro-constitutional democratic integrity agenda.
You think Kevin McCarthy is swamp?
You know, the elected officials bother me less, to be honest with you, because they're still backstopped by public accountability. He's got to get elected every 2 years. He's accountable to the public. What bothers me, and you know what, I'm not as big on this. I don't care as much about like term limits. We can talk about that. All else equal, I would favor term limits. But where I think the real action is sunset clauses for the people who work in those bureaucracies without governmental accountability. And you ask about 2024, well, I'll tell you this. I think Republicans in particular are too fixated on the question of who instead of asking the question of what. As in, what does it actually mean to be a conservative, or what does it actually mean to be an American? And I picked the Republicans because, you know, presumably you have an incumbent president who, we'll see how long this lasts, could run. I think the Republican Party is obsessed too much on the who, too much on the biographical aspect of this, and not enough on defining what it is it wants to stand for. And, you know, if I have something to say about it, you know, I care about advancing that agenda. So we'll talk over the next few months.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Do you have any political aspirations long term or no?
I think that aspirations would be the wrong way to say it. I think I have frustrations. I did think about running for the U.S. Senate in 2022 for the 2022 seat in Ohio when it opened up in early 21. I decided that being one of 100 was not the right setting for me. I think it's really important that good people fill that role. But for me, I got a good piece of advice, which is if you want to interview for a job, which is what you're doing if you're running a campaign, make sure you actually want the job and that you think you'd be passionate about doing that job, and being one of 100 people pretending to pass laws when in fact just trying to get on Fox News or MSNBC at night, that didn't appeal to me. And I think that's what many people in that seat are doing today. So I won't run for the Senate. But beyond that,
so meaning, we'll are you more of a one of 100 guy, one of 50 guy, or one of one guy?
I think I'm at my best when I can be a one of one guy that actually gets something done. But I couldn't do it if your hands are tied by the people who effectively work underneath you. Because having run a company, I'll tell you, if you can't fire somebody, they don't actually work for you. I've done deals in Japan. In Japan, I've talked to CEOs where they will tell you they literally can't fire a guy who works for them. So they'll tell him, in pharma companies included, they'll tell them to change the projects they're working on. The employee will nod, okay. Go back 3 months later, the employee's doing exactly what he was doing before. Why? Because what the CEO says doesn't matter if you can't be fired for deviating from that mandate. And that's what we need to fix in our federal government. Is I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I at least want the people who we elect, the person who we elect to occupy that seat, to actually run the executive branch of the government.
What would be crazy?
It's not the case today.
There was a guy. Imagine a world where a guy who ran a show where he was famous for firing people became a president. Imagine that guy.
If only,
right?
yeah. And then now imagine that he
that's
actually does
obviously
it when
a
he's
movie.
in the office.
Yeah. You think there's
any?
any chance he'll be back in there, or you think it's going to be more DeSantis?
I don't believe in a dual choice menu.
You're not an in-and-out guy.
I'm not. I don't believe in just two choices. On any menu.
So give us a third choice.
Well, let's let the year unfold. Why don't we?
Is there a third choice you would think? Like, is there anybody else that would be the third choice?
Now we're going back too much on this. It's going back to the problem that I said. Too much discussion of the who and not enough discussion of the what. And the what is what I actually care about.
I get that, but that's kind of to fix the what right now with what happened this last week, where you saw
it's going to take people.
Gates.
I agree with you. It's going to take the who.
It's not a. You saw what Matt Gaetz happened with those guys, where Kevin McCarthy thought the red wave was going to get him to say, "I don't need anybody from Trump's camp. I can do whatever I want to do. You guys go talk whatever you. I'm going to get so many different, the red wave that you guys can't even say nothing. I don't need your signatures. I don't need your votes. Shit change. He kind of needs their help a lot. So it's in a different place where they kind of have to work together, or else the other side could potentially fire this guy named Joe Biden and bring this other guy named Gavin. I don't know if you know this other guy named Gavin who likes to go to the French Laundry a lot without masks on. Yeah, so he's seeming
making
to
sure
be,
that everyone else doesn't, though.
Yeah,
that's the key part of it.
He's seeming to be their superstar.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.